The alert blared through the Galactic Border Patrol Station, filling the air with urgency. Captain Zorvac, a seasoned officer of the Varlan Empire, stared at the holographic screen in disbelief. A massive warship had entered their sector, moving at an alarming speed. The ship's design was unlike anything they had encountered before, sleek, dark, and radiating energy far beyond their scanner's understanding. "Commander, we have an unidentified vessel approaching," a young officer reported, his voice shaking. Zorvac narrowed his reptilian eyes. "Hail them. Now." The communication officer pressed a series of glowing buttons, sending out a universal greeting signal. Seconds passed. No response. He tried again, using different frequencies, even ancient distress codes, but still nothing. The silence was unsettling. Every known species in the galaxy followed standard communication protocols. Ignoring them was either an act of defiance or a sign that this ship belonged to something unknown. Zorvac turned to his tactical officer. "Are their weapons charged?" The officer's many eyes flickered across the data. "Unknown, Captain. Their energy levels are beyond anything we've seen. Our scanners can't read through their hull." A heavy silence fell over the control room. If their scanners couldn't penetrate the ship, that meant one thing. This vessel was far more advanced than anything in the Galactic Council's fleet. Zorvac clenched his fists. "Send an urgent message to the Council. They need to see this." Within minutes, the Galactic Council's emergency chamber filled with holographic projections of representatives from every major empire. Some had fur, some had scales, others had metallic exoskeletons, but they all had the same expression: concern. The Supreme Chancellor, a towering insectoid named Vrelac, raised a claw. "Explain the situation, Captain Zorvac." Zorvac bowed slightly. "An unidentified warship has breached the outer border. It is not responding to communication, and its energy readings surpass anything in our records. We do not know its origin." Murmurs of panic spread among the council members. A feline-like ambassador from the Zevran Republic hissed, "It could be a prelude to an invasion. We must attack first before it strikes us down." An elder from the Uranus Federation shook his head. "No, we cannot risk war without understanding the threat." Vrelac turned his many eyes toward the council. "We must decide quickly. Do we prepare for war, or do we attempt diplomacy?" Before anyone could answer, a new alert flashed across the screen. The warship had changed course. It was heading straight for the heart of Galactic Council space. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Every representative spoke at once, their voices overlapping in panic and fear. A warship of unknown origin was no longer hovering at the border. It was moving directly toward their core worlds. Supreme Chancellor Vrelac slammed a claw against the podium. Silence. The room fell into a tense hush, but the fear lingered in every eye. Vrelac turned to Captain Zorvac. "Can your fleet intercept it?" Zorvac hesitated. The Galactic Patrol had powerful ships, but nothing compared to what they had seen from the approaching vessel. "We can try," he said carefully, "but I do not believe our weapons will be effective against its technology." A deep growl rumbled from the shadows of the chamber. Ambassador Kor, the wolf-like warrior of the Dralnok Empire, leaned forward, baring his fangs. "Then we must prepare our strongest warships and strike first. If this thing reaches our homeworlds, it will be too late." A soft, calculated voice interrupted. "Attacking without knowing what we're facing is foolish." All heads turned toward the speaker, a tall, silver-skinned being from the Vari Collective. Their species valued logic above all else, and their words carried weight. "We must understand what we are dealing with. If we attack blindly, we risk provoking something far stronger than us." A nervous silence followed. No one wanted to admit the truth. The warship's energy readings were beyond anything recorded in the known galaxy. If it was hostile, no fleet in the Council's history had the power to stop it. Just then, a transmission alert flashed on the central hologram. Everyone froze. For the first time, the unknown warship was sending a signal. "Put it through," Vrelac commanded. The room darkened, and a massive figure appeared in the holographic display. It was humanoid, tall, broad-shouldered, and clad in what appeared to be a dark armored suit. A single glowing visor covered its face. The room filled with a deep, resonating voice. "This is Captain Alexander Kane of the UNSF Dreadnought Nemesis." The name meant nothing to anyone in the chamber. No one had ever heard of the UNSF. No records mentioned a species called human. And yet, something about the figure's presence sent a shiver through even the bravest warriors in the room. Kane continued, his voice calm but unwavering. "You are in possession of something that belongs to humanity. Return it, and no harm will come to you." The council members exchanged confused glances. What was he talking about? Vrelak stepped forward cautiously. "We do not know who you are or what you seek. Explain yourself." Kane didn't move. "You have 1 hour to comply." The transmission cut off. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Ambassador Kor let out a low growl. "We cannot allow this creature to threaten us." Vrelak's mandibles clicked in frustration. "But what does he want? What is it that we supposedly have?" Captain Zorvak's claws tapped against his console, pulling up records of recent discoveries. Then his eyes widened. "Chancellor," he said, voice tight. "There was an ancient artifact recovered on the planet Xyros 3 last cycle. The research team said it emitted an unknown energy signature, something unlike any known civilization." Vrelak turned sharply. "Are you saying it could be of human origin?" Zorvak hesitated. "I'm saying it may belong to them, and they're willing to wage war to get it back." The chamber grew cold with realization. The warship wasn't here to invade. It was here for something the council had taken, and they had less than an hour to decide what to do. Tension gripped the Galactic Council chamber as the countdown began. 59 minutes remained. Vrelak paced the room, his claws clicking against the polished floor. "We must confirm if this artifact truly belongs to them," he said, turning toward Captain Zorvak. "Bring me the research logs." Zorvak nodded and hurried to his console. The council members whispered among themselves, torn between fear and anger. Some believed this was a bluff, an attempt to intimidate them. Others knew better. The energy readings from the human warship were undeniable. The holographic screen flickered, displaying the artifact in question. It was a smooth metallic sphere, pulsing with a faint blue glow. Its surface was covered in strange symbols, ones no known species could decipher. One of the scientists, a reptilian scholar named Velikos, stepped forward. "This artifact was retrieved from an abandoned ruin on Xyros 3. Initial scans indicate it is at least 100,000 years old, but something is strange." Vrelak narrowed his eyes. "Explain." Velikos hesitated before answering. "The symbols. They match an extinct language found on a distant planet, one we dismissed as uninhabited. That planet's name was Earth." The chamber went silent. Earth, a forgotten world at the edge of the galaxy, a place no one had considered relevant in centuries. And now its people had returned. Vrelak straightened, his mind racing. If this artifact is of human origin, then keeping it is an act of war. But if we return it, we show weakness. Ambassador Kor slammed a fist onto the table. "Weakness. We are the Galactic Council. We do not bow to a single warship." A deep mechanical voice interrupted. "You may not have a choice." The council turned toward the source of the voice. A holographic transmission had forced itself onto their main display. Captain Alexander Kane stared down at them, his armored form rigid, unmoving. Behind him, the interior of his warship flickered in the background. Massive screens displaying weapon systems, targeting data, and a countdown identical to theirs. "I assume you've reviewed the artifact's origins," Kane said. Vrelak forced himself to remain composed. "We are still discussing." "You have 40 minutes, Kane interrupted. His tone was flat, emotionless. "Return what is ours, or I will retrieve it myself." Ambassador Kor bared his fangs. "You think you can just take it?" Kane didn't blink. Yes. A tremor ran through the chamber. No threats, no posturing, just a simple, terrifying certainty. Vrilak's mandibles twitched. We do not respond well to ultimatums, Captain Kane. Kane's visor glowed slightly. Then respond to this. The transmission cut off, and suddenly, alarms blared through the council chambers. Every screen flashed red. The warship was moving. Not toward them. Toward Zyros 3. Zorvak's voice was tight with urgency. They are heading straight for the artifact's location. The chamber erupted into chaos once more. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others argued that a single warship could not possibly challenge the entire fleet. But deep down, they all felt it, an uneasy realization. This was not a simple demand. This was a warning, and humanity was prepared to back it up with force. Panic spread through the Galactic Council chamber as the human warship altered its course, heading straight for Kairos 3. Emergency alarms blared, and holographic screens displayed real-time footage of the massive vessel accelerating through space. Vrilak turned to Captain Zorvak. Do we have a defense fleet in the sector? Zorvak's claws danced across the control panel. 2 cruisers and a planetary defense grid. Not enough to stop a warship of that size. Ambassador Kor hissed in frustration. Are we really going to let them take what they want? Velkos, the scientist, stepped forward. If this artifact truly belongs to them, we might be dealing with something beyond our understanding. It's possible the humans are more advanced than we believed. Vrilak's mandibles twitched in irritation. Possible. You think this is the time for speculation? A new alarm sounded. Zorvak's voice was sharp. The human warship has disabled our long-range communications. They don't want interference. Ambassador Kor slammed a fist on the table. They're treating us like we're nothing. Velkos hesitated. Maybe we are. To them. The council chamber fell silent at those words. Outside, the 2 cruisers in orbit around Zyros 3 repositioned themselves, moving to block the warship's approach. Weapons locked onto the vessel, waiting for authorization to fire. Vrilak turned to Zorvak. Open a direct channel to the human ship. Zorvak hesitated, then nodded. A moment later, the holographic screen flickered back to life. Captain Kane's expression was unreadable. Your time is running out. Vrilak took a deep breath. We request more time to discuss the matter. No, Kane said simply. Ambassador Kor snarled. We will not be intimidated. Kane tilted his head slightly. Then fire your weapons. Silence. The Galactic Council knew the truth. They were afraid. Vrilak tried a different approach. This artifact has been under our care for decades. What proof do you have that it belongs to you? Kane didn't respond immediately. Then he lifted his arm, pressing a button on his gauntlet. The artifact, still inside the research facility on Zyros 3, pulsed. A deep hum vibrated through the planet, strong enough to shake buildings. The scientists inside the facility scrambled back in shock as the artifact slowly rose into the air on its own. Back in the council chamber, Velko's eyes widened in horror as data streamed across the screens. It's responding to their signal. Kane's voice was calm. It was never yours to begin with. On the monitors, the 2 galactic cruisers suddenly received new orders to stand down. The council had no choice. Vrilak clenched his fists. You planned this from the beginning. Kane's visor glowed faintly. No, we simply came to reclaim what was ours. The transmission cut out. On Zyros 3, the artifact began its ascent, floating into the sky, drawn toward the human warship like a lost child returning home. The council members could do nothing but watch as the warship retrieved it and turned away. Without another word, the human vessel disappeared into the void of space, leaving behind only a single message. This was a warning. Next time, we won't ask. The void of space remained eerily silent after the human warship's departure, but its presence still lingered in the minds of every Galactic Council member. They had just witnessed something that shattered their long-held beliefs. Vrilak's mandibles twitched as he stared at the empty screen where Captain Kane had just issued his final warning. His claws curled into fists. They came, took what they wanted, and left. And we let them. Ambassador Kor's frills flared in anger. We had no choice. You saw what they did. That artifact belonged to them, and we never even knew. They had complete control from the moment they arrived. Scientist Velkos remained fixated on the data scrolling across the holographic displays. Not just control, he whispered. They had power. Power beyond anything we predicted. Zorvak, the defense commander, exhaled slowly. We underestimated them. Ambassador Kor scoffed. Underestimated. We assumed they were insignificant. Look at what just happened. They disabled our communications, forced our hand without firing a single shot, and walked away without a scratch. Vrilak's voice was low. We need to know more about them. Velkos turned, his eyes filled with urgency. If we don't, this won't be the last time they surprise us. Across the Galactic Council, an unspoken fear settled over them. For centuries, they had believed themselves the dominant force in this sector, dictating terms to lesser species, deciding the fate of civilizations. But now, they had encountered something different, something more dangerous. The humans had shown their strength without aggression. They had proven their superiority without violence. And worst of all, they had left without concern. Zorvak straightened, his voice grave. If they ever return, will we be ready? No one had an answer. Deep within the Galactic Council's central command, tension thickened like a storm cloud. The silence after the human warship's departure was unsettling. No one spoke, but the weight of their encounter pressed down on them. Zorvak stood at the edge of the war room, his gaze fixed on the empty space where the warship had disappeared. We cannot let this stand, he muttered. Ambassador Kor turned sharply. Let what stand exactly? That they came and left without harming us. That they took back what was rightfully theirs. Zorvak's mandibles twitched. They demonstrated complete dominance without firing a single shot. What happens if they decide they no longer want to be peaceful? Scientist Velkos tapped a series of commands on his console, pulling up detailed scans of the human warship. Their technology is beyond anything we have encountered. The energy readings alone suggest capabilities far surpassing our own. His voice dropped. If they had attacked, we wouldn't have stood a chance. Vrilak, still gripping the edge of the council table, exhaled deeply. We need to reassess everything we thought we knew about them. Kor's frills twitched. What do you propose? That we start preparing for war against a species that hasn't shown hostility. Zorvak's voice was grim. We prepare for survival. If they are this advanced, we must assume they are not alone. What if this was only a fraction of their power? What if more of them come? The council chamber fell silent again. Velkos hesitated before speaking. We need information. We have treated humans as insignificant for too long, but that time is over. We must understand their origins, their numbers, their goals. Vrilak nodded. If they return, we cannot afford to be caught off guard. Kor looked around the room. And if they don't return? Zorvak's claws curled into a fist. Then we find them before they find us. A chill ran through the chamber. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and for the first time in history, the Galactic Council realized they were no longer the dominant force. The Galactic Council chamber remained eerily silent. The weight of the revelation was unbearable. Every species present now understood a terrifying truth. Humanity was not just another race. They were something far greater, something unknown. Vrilak finally broke the silence. We have always believed ourselves to be the pinnacle of galactic civilization. That assumption has been shattered. Zorvak paced the room, his claws tapping against the cold metal floor. The humans never threatened us. They didn't fire a single shot, and yet we were powerless before them. They showed us a glimpse of their power, just enough to make us understand. Ambassador Kor exhaled sharply. Then the question remains, what do we do now? Velikos adjusted his display, running calculations on the energy readings left in the wake of the human warship. From what we've seen, they could have destroyed us at any moment. But they didn't. That tells us something important. Vrelak nodded. They don't see us as a threat. Zorvak's mandibles twitched. Or worse, they don't see us as equals. The room tensed at the implication. Had the humans spared them out of mercy or indifference? We need a strategy, Kor said firmly. We cannot let fear drive us to reckless actions. If we act aggressively, we risk provoking a war we cannot win. Velikos tapped a few commands, pulling up historical records. Humanity's history is filled with war, but also with cooperation. They value strength, intelligence, and resilience. If we want to survive, we need to prove that we are not just obstacles in their path. Vrelak folded his arms. Then we must open communications, on our terms. Show them we are willing to engage, not as enemies, but as equals. Zorvak hesitated, then nodded slowly. We do not beg. We do not surrender. But we learn. If they are stronger than us, we adapt. We evolve. Ambassador Kor straightened. Then we make our choice now. We either prepare for war against an enemy that doesn't even see us as a threat, or we become something greater. The council members exchanged glances. The decision was clear. The galaxy had changed forever. And for the first time, the Galactic Council understood. They were no longer deciding the fate of the universe. Humanity was.